Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we will be going to discuss The Uncanny, which is an influential essay written by Sigmund Freud in 1919. In this essay, Freud explores the concept of the uncanny, focusing on its psychological and literary manifestations. He examines various instances of the uncanny, including the repetition of the same themes and motifs in myths and folk tales across different cultures. Freud argues that the experience of the uncanny is closely linked to the unconscious mind and the re-emergence of repressed material. Freud begins by defining the uncanny as something that is simultaneously familiar and unfamiliar, producing a sense of discomfort and unease. He believes that the uncanny arises from situations where something that should have remained hidden and repressed comes to light, challenging our sense of reality. The uncanny can be triggered by various sources such as the repetition of certain themes, the presence of doubles, or the blurring of boundaries between life and death. Freud delves into the significance of the uncanny in literature, particularly in the genres of horror and the fantastic. He analyzes Hoffman's story The Sandman as a prime example of the uncanny. The protagonist's fear of the Sandman and his belief that he will steal his eyes can be understood as a manifestation of castration anxiety. The uncanny elements in the story, such as the automaton Olympia and the repetition of the phrase eyes being robbed, tap into the unconscious fears and desires of the reader. Furthermore, Freud explores the theme of the double or doppelganger in literature and its connection to the uncanny. He suggests that the double represents a projection of the individual's repressed desires or fears. Freud cites the legend of the double as a prevalent theme in various cultures, manifesting in myth and folklore. The doppelganger, he argues, serves as a symbolic representation of the uncanny experience of seeing oneself as both familiar and unfamiliar, leading to a sense of disturbance. Freud continues by discussing the concept of the death instinct, which plays a significant role in the experience of the uncanny. He proposes that the uncanny arises from conflict between the life and death instincts within an individual. This conflict manifests in various ways, such as the return of the repressed or the presence of the dead in the realm of the living. Freud highlights the motif of the haunting and the recurrence of the dead as common elements that evoke the uncanny. Moreover, Freud explores the relationship between the uncanny and the human perception of reality. He suggests that the experience of the uncanny is closely tied to the repressed beliefs and desires of the individual, which can emerge unexpectedly and disrupt our perception of reality. The uncanny forces us to confront the existence of the irrational and the supernatural, challenging our understanding of the world. In the latter part of the essay, Freud delves into the connection between the uncanny and the creative process. He argues that creative individuals have a heightened sensitivity to the uncanny and are more capable of expressing it through their artistic endeavors. Art, according to Freud, provides a means of sublimating the uncanny and transforming it into a manageable form. In conclusion, Freud's essay The Uncanny explores the psychological and literary manifestations of the uncanny. He defines the uncanny as something simultaneously familiar and unfamiliar, causing a sense of unease and discomfort. Through the analysis of literature, Freud examines various themes and motifs that evoke the uncanny, such as the repetition of certain elements, the presence of doubles, and the blurring of boundaries between life and death. He argues that the experience of the uncanny is closely tied to the unconscious mind and the re-emergence of repressed material. Ultimately, Freud suggests that the uncanny challenges our perception of reality. Now we will discuss the important themes in the essay The Uncanny by Sigmund Freud. Number 1, familiarity and unfamiliarity. The uncanny is characterized by a simultaneous sense of familiarity and unfamiliarity. Freud emphasizes that the uncanny arises when something that should have remained hidden or repressed is brought to light, challenging our perception of reality. Number 2, repetition. Freud discusses the significance of repetition as a trigger for the uncanny. He notes that the repetition of certain themes, motives, or experiences can evoke a sense of unease and discomfort. The repetition of specific elements taps into the unconscious and may reveal repressed desires or fears. Number third, doubles and doppelgangers. The theme of doubles or doppelgangers is central to Freud's exploration of the uncanny. He suggests that the presence of a double represents a projection of an individual's repressed desires or fears. The encounter with one's double creates an uncanny experience of seeing oneself as both familiar and unfamiliar. Fourth, blurring of boundaries. Freud discusses how the uncanny is often associated with the blurring of boundaries between life and death, reality and fantasy, or self and other. These boundary disturbances challenge our sense of stability and provoke the uncanny. Fifth, death instinct. Freud explores the role of the death instinct in the experience of the uncanny. He proposes that the uncanny arises from a conflict between the life and death instincts within an individual. The presence of death, the return of the repressed, or the recurrence of the dead are all elements that evoke the uncanny.